how in what manner rules of humanity should be looked upon and where exactly you have come from. That's very, very important from the point of view of understanding the very purposes of the humanity as such. What is the rules of humanity and how in what manner rules of humanity should be looked into, and how in what manner the way in which the dictate of public consciousness is one of the requirements which shall also be looked upon. So that's why understanding the rights of women under international law is not so simple. It requires a lot of drill to understand each one of them. So that's why I have come across with some slides through which you can understand how in what manner you can understand gender sensitization. So you can put a fundamental question: why laws are actually favoring women all over the world? My answer is very simple. It is because of historical injustice and practical denials. Women are possessing as many as the legislations. Look at in Indian subcontinent. So many legislations have been actually passed with you to protect, promote, and encourage human rights of these vulnerable groups without a distinction with the race, sex, language, and religion as such. Please understand the way in which the preamble of United Nations Charter 1945, which has outspoken on women and men as well, they don't make such a kind of a categorical distinction between these two. What they say, they should go hand in hand. I must share with you on the basis of our two bodies, one soul, or two faces of the same coin. So oneness shall be looked upon when it comes to the knowledge of the gender justice. What is a gender justice? How will you understand the gender justice? How can you throw light on gender justice? This is very, very important from the point of view of understanding gender sensitization as such. So with these few aspects, of course, no matter, there are so many conflicts are there with a view to understand the relationship between men and women. Whether egg is first, hen is first, plant is first, seed is first, men are first, women are first. I must share with you, cannot be stronger by exploiting others. That's very, very important. That we have to understand. I'm one of the students of public international law, where I have excelled myself to understand how in what manner the public international law is actually responsible to understand the problems of a human being all over the world, irrespective of the fact that. Can you please mute yourself? Hello? 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 Can you hear me? Hello?
ಕೇಳಿಸ್ತಾ ಇದೆ ಹೇಳಿ ಸರ್.
ಅಲ್ಲ ಇದು ಮ್ಯೂಟ್ ಮಾಡಿಲ್ಲ ಒಬ್ರು, ಅವರಿಗೆ ಮ್ಯೂಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಹೇಳಿ. ತುಂಬಾ ಈ ಕಡೆಯಿಂದ
ಹೆಸರು ಗೊತ್ತಾದ್ರೆ ಹೇಳ್ಬೋದು ಸರ್. ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಹೇಳಿ. ಇಲ್ಲಿ
ಬರ್ತಾ ಇಲ್ಲ, ಹಾಗಾಗಿ
ಒಂದ್ ನಿಮಿಷ
ಮ್ಯೂಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಹೇಳಿ ಇವರಿಗೆ ದಯಮಾಡಿ.
ಯಾರು ಮೇಲೆ ಮಾಂತೇಶ್?
ಹಾ ಸರ್, ಇಲ್ಲ ನಾವ್ ಇವಾಗ ಆನ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ವಿ, ಯಾರು ಮ್ಯೂಟ್ ಆಗೈತೆ ಅಂತ ನೋಡೋಣ.
ಮಾಂತೇಶ್, ಶಿವಕುಮಾರ್, ಚನ್ನಬಸಪ್ಪ, ಶಿವಕುಮಾರ್ GT.
Yes. ಆಯ್ತಾ?
Okay, shall I proceed?
ಶಿವಕುಮಾರ್ GT. Okay.
Yeah. Kindly talk to him. Okay. Thank you very much. I'll proceed to some of the observations in connection to the subject matter of human rights. As you have already been understood, being a teacher, perhaps you might have taught human rights from different dimensions. I agree with you. However, it stimulates me to share few thoughts on the concept of human rights. Unless and until you should have had some thought-provoking issues on the concept of human rights, it would be virtually impossible to understand the gender sensitization or gender justice, whatever it could be. So as I have already made it clear, why laws are actually favoring women, my answer is very simple. It is because of historical injustice and practical denials. Women are actually possessing so many rights which are guaranteed under national, regional, and international law as such. What is international law is here? You know very well. International law is nothing but body of rules and principles which regulates members of international community as a whole. So what I would like to share with you, before the coming into force of a United Nations organization, Charter 1945, all individuals had to be treated as chattels or goods all over the world, and there was no scope for protection of their rights. It was because of efforts made by few statesmen at the international level, none other than Roosevelt, Churchill, then Stalin. They sat together and decided to have some rights of human being. This has come through on the basis of these factors. Please understand. With these few aspects, you have to understand how not manner general rule and special rule shall be looked upon. What are the laws available? So I'm going to share with you on the basis of treaties in which they have outspoken at the international level as such. Under Article 2, Paragraph 1 of Vienna Convention on Law of Treaties 1969, wherein it has defined what is treaty, what are the contents in it, how a treaty can be concluded. Sometimes, you know very well, states will gather in some places to sign on the record. Signing the treaty is not ultimate. You have to ratify them. That's very, very important. So ratification is always one of the major tasks at the international level to implement international law at the municipal level as such. So that's why many normative foundations and institutional buildings have spoken of. What is normative foundations and institutional buildings? So how will you understand normative foundations? Look at normative foundations. We have had UDHR, Universal Declaration of Human Rights, International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights 1966. We have International Covenant on Economic, Social and Cultural Rights 1966. Along with the continuity of these three main normative foundations, we have a Beijing Declaration 1995 and many. Look at some of the observations emphasized on the basis of United Nations Charter 1945. It was because of efforts made by few countries of the world, as many as institutions have set up. Take for an example, it could be ILO, International Labour Organization, UNICEF, UNESCO, ILO, ICAO, IBRD, IMF, IDA, then international finance corporations have set up to understand the problems of a human being all over the world as such. So with these few aspects, one has to understand where exactly the problems have come through. You should understand, of course, this is one of the hypothetical answers I'm just sharing with you. If you are closer to high temperature, the high fertility will come. When you got high fertility, population will be increased. When you got population explosion, obviously the problems are quite common all over the world. It could be in a Eurocentric approach, Asia-Afrocentric approach, and US-centric approach. So in this context, you have to understand certain issues and challenges of women all over the world as such. When it comes to the knowledge of human rights, they have no boundaries. Although they have been actually restricted in few circumstances are concerned. This is what one could understand on the basis of these factors by saying that all rights which are guaranteed under law, they are not absolute, subject to certain limitations. You should understand Kriya and Karma. What is Kriya? Kriya for yourself, Karma for others. I mean to say, one vows duty towards others. I'm not living alone. I'm living with my wife, fellow human being, kids, all in all. I should know how to behave with somebody. This is very, very important from the point of view of understanding Kriya and Karma as such. Karma that itself is based on some responsibilities are shouldered on you. So that's why when you are actually enjoying your rights, you should be in a person to understand what are the rights of others. That's very, very important. Otherwise, it's very difficult to understand the concept of the life in different perspectives are concerned. Look at Article 21 of the Indian Constitution, wherein it has outspoken on right to life. Right to life, which includes dignity of a human being. This is very, very important from the point of view of understanding what is life, what are the contents in it, how a life shall be looked upon. So in this context, as many as cases have been actually decided by Honorable Supreme Court of India to understand what is the right to life, how in what manner right to life shall be looked upon. So in this context, having gone through on various cases decided by Honorable Supreme Court of India is to be looked upon. Look at Article 32, which guarantees right to constitutional remedies. That is, right to move to Supreme Court to enforce fundamental rights. It is constitutional mandate of the judiciary to protect human rights of citizens. Supreme Court and High Courts are in fact empowered to take action to enforce these rights. These rights in the sense that rights which are emphasized under Part 3 of the Constitution of India. The Part 3 of Constitution of India, as you have already been known, being a teacher, has been actually dealing with fundamental rights, in which they have emphasized on the basis of human rights. Human rights are nothing but basic rights, natural rights, inalienable, interrelated, instrumental, integrated. They're all holistic. So in this context, we have to define what are human rights, what are the contents in it, why human rights have outspoken at the national and international level as such. So in this context, as many as mercenaries have been established for redressing the grievance of these vulnerable groups. Of course, no doubt, women are highly marginalized, retracted, and vulnerable in this society as well. Although we have had constitutional law and international law, the problems of women, or especially a country like India, is actually alarming, and we need to have some action plan to work up. So that's why understanding the problems of women is not so simple. It's a highly sensitive. Sometimes they don't reveal. See, some people will go to court. Those who have got moral support, economic support, political support, and family support, they'll go to court. Otherwise, they have to close their doors and weep a little, wipe out a little, and say, yeah, this is my life, I have to go. So these are the barriers we have when it comes to the knowledge of problems of women, countries like India as such. So there should be something in the sense that someone should come forward to help them. I mean to say that the entire civil society is responsible to pay for it, since she is highly vulnerable at this juncture as such. So that's why we need to have some agencies to look after all these aspects are concerned. See, machinery for redress is provided under Article 32 and 226 of the Constitution, wherein it has outspoken on right to remedy as such. Right to remedy, that itself is a fundamental right. Look at Article 32 and 226 of the Constitution, wherein High Courts and Supreme Court have been actually empowered to promote and encourage the human rights of these human beings without distinction with the race, sex, language, and religion as such. This has to be looked upon. And moreover, an aggrieved person can directly approach the Supreme Court or High Court of the concerned state for the protection of her fundamental rights, redress of a grievance, and enjoyment of fundamental rights. In such cases, courts are empowered to issue appropriate orders, directions, and writs in the nature of habeas corpus, mandamus, prohibition, quo warranto, and certiorari. So that's why, having gone through on Article 32 of the Constitution is not so simple. It requires a lot of drill. I must share with you on the basis of one of the maxims. Where there is a right, there is a remedy. Where there is a right, there is a remedy. You be remedium. You should understand, along with the continuity of where there is a right, there is a duty. Where there is a duty, there is a liability. These are the dual relations one has to understand from different dimensions are concerned. Otherwise, it's very difficult to understand the problems of women, especially in Indian subcontinent is concerned. Look at one of the interesting cases decided by Honorable Supreme Court. Take for an example, Maneka Gandhi versus Union of India. In this particular case, Supreme Court interpreted the right to life and to widen its scope, and deduced unenumerated right, such as right to life, which includes human dignity as such. That's why the Supreme Court propounded the theory of emanation to make the existence of fundamental rights meaningful and effective also. Thereafter, in many cases, Supreme Court, especially in People's Union for Civil Liberties and others versus State of Maharashtra and others, Francis Caroline Millian versus Administrator, Union Territory of Delhi, it was held that right to life includes right to live with human dignity. Therefore, through the judicial interpretations, various rights have been actually recognized, though they are not specifically provided in Part 3rd of the Constitution of India. Look at one more interesting cases in SP Gupta versus Union of India, wherein Supreme Court has been actually interpreted that right to life, which includes dignity of a human being as such. Apart from these interesting cases, you have some cases like Bandhu Mukti Morcha versus Union of India, and Ram Sharan and other sources Union of India, Narmada Bachao Andolan versus Union of India. In these particular cases, in fact, public interest litigation was actually entertained to give more importance to understand right to life, which includes human dignity as such. So I must share with you on the basis of these factors by saying that, see, you cannot be a stronger by exploiting others. I mean to say, all are equally footing. Like should be treated alike, unlike should not be treated alike. Equality before law and equal protection of law, they should go hand in hand. This is what Article 14 of the Constitution of India has been actually outspoken on equality. That should be looked on the basis of fairness. This is very, very important. I must share with you on the basis of one of the illustrations. Kindly have a look on. Perhaps you may have gone through wolf theory. A wolf is actually standing before sheep and demanding, sheep, I have a right to food, I want to kill you. Then sheep replied politely, my dear friend, wolf, however, you might have got right to food, but I have a right to life, you cannot kill me. So in such a situation, so how, in what manner you are going to understand certain dichotomies between these two? This is very, very important. So why I'm sharing all these examples, whenever you want to go for understanding, problems of women, it is highly sensitive, and it requires a lot of philosophical foundations, without which it would be virtually impossible to understand the problems between men and women as such. See, that's what I must share with you on the basis of a Chinese philosophy, wherein your Confucius and Lao Tse, what they say that you shall not be an artificial in the sense that one should condemn an artificial life. Don't be materialistic as long as you are living with somebody, maybe husband or wife, whoever might be. They should go hand in hand. That's why one has to understand on the basis of natural law theory as such. The natural law theory has actually given you some inputs to understand the rights in which they have been emphasized on the basis of law of nature. That's very, very important. See, there is a dichotomy between rule of jungle and rule of law as such. In rule of jungle, you are just hunting, eating something. Whereas in case of a rule of law is totally different. Rule of law means rule according to law. No one above the law, when king also under the law and God. One has to understand. Nobody is actually superior, isn't it? You cannot be stronger by exploiting others. That's very, very important. So you have to grow naturally, how plants and trees are growing. This is what they don't require any support from anybody to grow naturally. Likewise, human being should grow naturally, how plants and trees are growing. This is very, very important. So why I'm sharing, see, when you are understanding certain sensitive issues, obviously one has to understand the philosophical foundations, wherein they have outspoken to shape the word in a different perspectives or concept. This is one of the observations I have. On the other hand, when you are actually running with these sensitive issues, understanding the internationalization of human rights is very much required, because each state is a supreme in eye of law. It can pass any legislation, amend any legislation, and repeal any legislation. Such a kind of an autonomy has already been given to a state to decide. So such being the case, even in some countries, women are not accessible to have some amenities, minimum necessities, especially in Middle East countries. She is unable to enjoy certain rights. This is really miserable. You have to understand. Look back, especially in Libya, Korea, and then even in ongoing crisis in Yemen, like Afghanistan and all. She is, in fact, unable to access some amenities. So this is really somewhat ridiculous to understand these. That's why, in order to overcome all these issues and challenges, I'm just suggesting you to go ahead with the internationalization of human rights. Look at the preamble of UN Charter 1945, wherein it starts with we the people of United Nations to determine the succeeding generation from the scourge of war. No matter we had as many as war crisis, and you know very well, especially during First and Second World War, the entire Europe was battlefield. There was no scope for protection of rights of human being and their freedoms. States were actually involved with the war crisis, and there was no scope for understanding peace. What is peace? Peace, it does not mean it is an absence of war. Peace means presence of justice. This is very, very important. You have to understand what is peace, what are the contents in it, how a justice shall be looked upon. Justice is the virtue of a social institution. This is what your John Rawls has expressed in his theory of justice as such. You have to understand all these parameters in which they have outspoken on the basis of humanizing the law or the locomotion theory as such. So have a look on one of the slokas, which is highly expressive in Sanskrit. Look at, a woman, all women are actually protected by their, fathers. In her childhood, her husband protects her, youth. In old age, she should be protected by her, kid. So these are the, developments you could be emphasizing on the basis of some slokas in which they are highly expressive in the earlier history as such. We can put a fundamental question: why laws are actually favoring women? As I said, my answer is very simple. It is because of a historical injustice and practical denials. She has been possessing so many rights which are guaranteed under the law as such. See, when you are understanding the problems of human being, especially women, have a look on earlier history. What is civilization and culture? When you are understanding problems of women at the international level, have a look on civilization and the culture in which you have been retaining since time immemorial. What is a civilization? Civilization is nothing but what we do is our civilization. What we for is our culture as such. How will you understand civilization and the culture? Whether they should go hand in hand or not. So that you have to understand from the point of view of understanding these aspects are concerned. Look back earlier history. It could be Mesopotamian civilization, Indus Valley civilization, Greek civilization, Vedic civilization, and many. They have in fact taught us how to live in this holistic and integrated society as such. And moreover, practicing good culture in a given society is very much required. We don't want to have a cultural change in the society as a whole. This is very, very important. If you are witnessing many issues and challenges. Of course, we need to have cultural change in the society as a whole. So what kind of cultural change you have, and how in what manner cultural change shall be looked upon? Look at India's position. Delhi is known for, rapist places. When very recently in Mysore, in Chamundi Hill, there was a gang rape. And who are responsible all these issues and challenges? Of course, no doubt, sensitizing the human being is one of the major aspects, particularly with reference to gender. What is gender? How gender justice shall be looked upon? How can you understand gender justice? You know very well, justice has to be looked upon. It could be distributive or corrective of justice. This is what V.R. Krishna has emphasized in many cases before Honorable Supreme Court of India, wherein he says, access to justice is one among human rights. Access to justice is one among human rights. That you have to understand. Once you have failed in understanding the concept of justice, whatever you are going to share would be undermined. So that's why you have to understand all these parameters, even from the perspective of the public international law as such. So why I'm sharing all these examples? As and when you deal with the protection of human rights of women, please go through what are the developments that are taken place through new international economic order as such. How new international economic order was actually responsible to understand the problems of women all over the world. Look at, after having gone through WTO and LPG system as such, liberalization, privatization and globalization, how not manner World Trade Organization has been actually successful in order to curb the issues and challenges between men and women all over the world. This has to be looked upon, even on the basis of right to development. What is right to development? This is what your Amartya Sen has acknowledged. Right to development means economic development, economic empowerment shall be looked upon. With a view to understand right to development, kindly have a look on the developments that were taken place at the international level as such. Look at, in 1986, a declaration on right to development was established. In 2000, Millennium Development Goals came in. On the basis of earlier history, in 2015, Sustainable Development Goals 2015 to 30 came out with some 17 goals to understand the world economy. See this context, have a look on goal number 5 of Sustainable Development Goals 2015, wherein they have outspoken on gender. How do you understand gender? Look at goal 5 of Sustainable Development Goals 2015 to 2030. It's a kind of an action plan to overcome the problems between men and women all over the world as such. It says that ending all discrimination against women and girls is not only a basic human right, it's crucial for sustainable future. It's proven that empowering women and girls helps economic growth and development. This is what United Nations Development Program has actually made gender equality central to its work, and we have running with these remarkable progress in the past 20 years. There are more girls in school now compared to 15 years ago. And most regions have actually reached gender parity in primary education. We have to acknowledge the efforts made by these statesmen at the international level as such. No matter. However, although there are more women than ever in the labor market, there are still large inequalities in some regions, with women systematically denied the same work rights as men. Sexual violence and exploitation and the unequal division of unpaid care and domestic work and discrimination in public office all remain huge barriers even today. And there are no ways to work out. However, there is a way out to overcome all these barriers. You are a better judge what is right and what is wrong. What is good for me may not be good for you. What is right for you may not be right for me. But there is a lot of scope to understand these dichotomies based on righteousness. On the basis of righteousness, you can judge what is right and what is wrong. If something has gone wrong at home, you have to understand what's going on, how to overcome. That's very, very important. I must share with you, charity begins at home. I agree with you. But violence begins at home. How would you overcome? Usually, as you have already been understood, if someone is actually crying at home, that the mother should know why he is actually crying. Literally, if something has gone wrong in a family, you should verify it. You should understand it, through which you can give gender equality. Otherwise, the very purpose of gender equality would be undermined, even within the limits of your own family. That's what I said. I'm not living alone. I'm living with my wife, children, brothers, sisters. I should know how to behave with somebody else. This is very, very important on the basis of the karma in which you have been running over here. So that's why, of course, no doubt, there are so many challenges which are highly expressive at the national and international level. We need to have some, root causes to work out. Otherwise, these problems will be continued till the end of your life. Maybe after 100 years, you are going to talk on the same subject. I'm very sorry to share sometimes whenever I want to go for sharing a few thoughts on gender justice as well. This is what the goal 5 of the what shall I say, sustainable development goals 2015 has been outspoken on the basis of these factors. It says that it is vital to give women equal rights, land and property, sexual and reproductive health, and to technology and the internet. Today, there are more women in public office than ever before, but encouraging more women leaders will help achieve greater gender equality as such. When you are actually understanding right to equality, fairness should be maintained. This is very, very important. How will you understand the fairness? How can you understand fairness? That can be read out with right to equality. Of course, no doubt, as you have already been understood, on the basis of Article 14, 15, Clause 3 of the Constitution of India, wherein you have given some rights to these vulnerable groups, none other than women. I agree with you. India is known for its multiculturalism and ethnic pluralism. No matter, I agree with you. However, there is a lot of drill to understand the problems of these women cutting across the country as such. This has to be looked upon, and there is a way out to understand all these developments that are taken place at the international level as such. See, usually, you know very well, even in your family might be, women are going to eat their food at the end. Might be a culture, I agree with you. What is culture? How can you understand culture? I am hungry. Shall I go for pickpocketing you to have my lunch? It shows my culture. This is very, very important. Poverty that is there everywhere. Even in Mahabharata, you can find poverty. Ramayana, you can find poverty. When Shabari met Rama, she did not find North Indian or South Indian food. She had just white fruits, gave them to Rama, worship the god Rama as such. This could happen, especially in the Ramayana as such. Look at Mahabharata. Ashwatthama used to drink milk powder rather than real milk as such. He asked a fundamental question to his mother when he tasted real milk, which was actually given by somebody else. Then she started crying and shared her views on the basis of her poverty. Poverty that is there everywhere, no matter. Even after 100 years, you are going to talk on poverty. However, culture is very much required, especially in almost all the countries of the world as such. First of all, you have to understand where exactly you have come from. Then only you appreciate where are you going. I'm sitting here because of my mother. That I should understand. Otherwise, my entity would have been different. So in this context, understanding the human values or rules of humanity or dictate of right consciousness shall also be looked upon. Otherwise, it's very difficult to understand the very purposes of the gender equality as such. Look at one of the statements given by Swami Vivekananda. What he says. He says, our religion has taught us not only tolerance, but also acceptance. That's very, very important. How will you judge? I'm not supposed to say in otherwise manner, but it has given me some inputs to share accordingly. This is what Swami Vivekananda has acknowledged by saying that our religion has taught us not only tolerance, but also acceptance. That's very, very important. You have to understand others. You have to overcome long-standing issues and challenges here and there. Otherwise, it's very difficult to understand this holistic and integrated society as a whole. I must share with you, being a student of law, I respect your truth. Please respect my truth. That is the strength you should understand. I respect your truth. Please respect my truth as such. They should go hand in hand. Otherwise, it's very difficult to have a look on this. While you're actually dealing with human rights of women under international law, one has to undergo transformational changes through philosophical foundations. What is philosophy? Philosophy is nothing but a deep-rooted knowledge. It is not actually based on short mind or half-minded. You know very well. Half knowledge is most dangerous. Philosophy is nothing but higher levels of generalization. It's a deep-rooted knowledge. It is there everywhere. Whatever you are revealing here in Mysore can be looked upon elsewhere in California, elsewhere in European countries, elsewhere in African countries, elsewhere in Asia, Afrocentric approaches. So in this context, understanding philosophical foundations on these perspectives shall also be looked upon. Of course, there are some sources. All these aspects are there in your religion, natural law, positive law, Marxism, sociological approach, American realism, Scandinavian realism, synthetic jurisprudence. See, when you are actually understanding the rights of human being, They have been actually theorized. Go back to earlier history, like, how the social contract theory came out with some observations. And earlier, what had happened? King was supreme, temple was supreme, church was supreme, mosque was supreme. There was no scope for protection of human rights of these people and fundamental freedoms. They were under the mercy of these, I mean to say, king, church, temple, and mosque. They were dominating, and there was no scope for understanding of your rights. It was because of efforts made by few, political thinkers, none other than Aristotle, Socrates, Plato, Hobbes, Locke, Rousseau. Look at Hobbesian philosophy in Leviathan. It says that the king has certain duties towards a citizen. What is his duty? How, in what manner duties of a king shall be looked upon? That's very, very important. You have given some powers to a king. King should also possess some duties towards one you. So in this context, you have to understand the jural relations in which it has outspoken. Where there is a right, there is a duty. Where there is a duty, there is a liability. Please understand, these are the jural relations. If X happens, then Y ought to happen. If X commits a crime, he should be prosecuted mercilessly. I must share with you, based on one of the maxims, ad punere and ad dedere. Ad punere and ad dedere. It means no serious criminals shall not go unpunished. They should be prosecuted mercilessly. If something has gone wrong during war situation, you know very well. This has happened in First and Second World War. Even in some ongoing internal armed conflicts, especially in Yemen, during war situation, women are going to be targeted. Sexual violences are quite common, and they will be butchered soon after sexual assaults. This is one of the major issues and challenges we have at the international level as such. To overcome all these, efforts have been made at the international level. So what are the efforts made by some agencies at the international level? That's why Universal Declaration of Human Rights, then International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights 1966, International Covenant on Economic, Social and Cultural Rights 1966, then Fourth World Conference on Women, none other than Beijing Declaration 1995, and CEDAW, Convention on Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women, 1979 as such. These are the laws how established at the international level to overcome some of the gender inequalities are concerned. Of course, although we have had many mechanisms at the international level, there are some challenging issues to implement such kind of international covenants are concerned. Look at, we have weak records of ratification. Some states, they will go there, sign on the record, come home happily without ratification. But as far as Vienna Convention on Law of Treaties 1969 is concerned, unless and until you should have had ratification of international conventions, it would be virtually impossible to transfer such kind of international law into the municipal law as such. This is what Article 253 of the Constitution, in which it has given you some inputs to understand how, in what manner international human rights law should be transformed into the municipal law such. In 1988, we had a Bangalore Declaration of a Judicial Colloquium. In Bangalore Declaration of Judicial Colloquium, many statesmen, they expressed their feelings by saying that the transformation of international human rights law into the municipal law is one of the steps that should be taken by all the governments who have actually looked upon. That's why whoever might have signed on the record should have had some responsibilities to ratify them accordingly. On the basis of ratification of international covenants, you can understand how in what manner international human rights law shall be brought in, and how in what manner the international law shall be looked upon. So in this context, you have to understand the way in which the Article 253 has given you some inputs to transfer such kind of international into the municipal laws. When you are actually running with the relationship between municipal law, I mean national law, and international law as such, there are so many theoretical observations I have spoken of. They could be monism, dualism, specific adoption theory. You have pluralistic theory. You have theory of harmonization. You have, delegation theory. So these are the theories which are highly expressive to understand the transformation of such kind of international law into the municipal law. When we were defining sexual harassment at working places, I mean to say, when the case was actually filed before Honorable Supreme Court, none other than Vishaka versus State of Rajasthan's case, we did not find any definition on what is a sexual harassment at working places. Fortunately, when we were deciding this case, India was one of the member countries of CEDA, Convention on Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women, 1979 as such. On the basis of judicial activism, we were able to transform such kind of law into the municipal law as such. It was possible because of efforts made by the then judges of Supreme Court of India as such. Now, in India, any sexual harassment at working places can be prosecuted mercilessly. The government of India has already been directed many public and private institutions should follow the guiding principles in which it has outspoken on the basis of Vishaka versus State of Rajasthan's case, 1997 as such. It has come through on the basis of the ratification as such. So, of course, no doubt, when it comes to the knowledge of almost all the world, I mean to say countries of the world, there is a weak record of ratification. This is one of the serious issues and challenges among the nations. Of course, no doubt, there are as many as a gigantic, complicated and wider issues. No matter, there is a room for discussing all these issues are concerned. And moreover, lack of national implementing legislations we have. You don't find such kind of good legislations to understand gender justice a country like India. Even today, we have been actually struggling a lot to overcome all this. And there is a lack of awareness or understanding by few authorities are concerned. So such being the case, we need to have good training to these agencies. Otherwise, it's very difficult to understand gender equality as such. And you know very well, the government of India is in fact implementing various programs and schemes and legislations to address various forms of gender discrimination. The root cause of gender discrimination is the patriarchal mindset prevalent in Indian society as such. It is because of patriarchal and matriarchal system. These problems are quite common, country like India as such. Though this mindset is changing with urbanization and education, still there is a long way to go for permanent change in the scenario in the sense that we need to have cultural change in the society. Unless and until you should have had a cultural change, it would be virtually impossible to live as human being. That's what I said on the basis of a Chinese philosophy, wherein your Confucius and Lao would say, they say that don't be an artificial. You have to condemn an artificial life. Nobody is actually superior or inferior. All are equally footing. That you have to understand. Like should be treated alike, and like should not be treated alike. Equality before law and equal protection of law, they should go hand in hand in a given situation as such. So in this context, especially the way in which the government of India has taken some steps to overcome some of the issues and challenges of gender inequality shall also be looked upon. Take for an example, the National Council of Education, Research and Training has developed syllabus and textbooks across the subjects to promote gender sensitization in the school curriculum message. Apart from this training institute, we have a Central Board of Secondary Education, you know very well. CBSE has prepared guidelines for gender sensitivity in textbooks and textual material, including question papers also. So that's why we should appreciate the way in which the government of India has taken certain steps to overcome gender inequality. And they are actually teaching you how to understand the concept of justice as such. This is very, very important. As I said, on the basis of access to justice is one among human rights as such. That's why the government of India has already enacted a number of legislations to prevent exploitation, harassments of women, and to address the issue of discrimination and gender disparity as such. Look at these include the right of children to free and compulsory education, RT Act 2009, which has given you some inputs to understand compulsory education should be given to the people who are actually below the 14 years are concerned. So in this context, as many as the legislations have been actually passed out to understand certain dichotomies between men and women, especially country like India. Apart from these legislations, you have a Criminal Law Amendment Act 2013, the Protection of Women from Domestic Violence Act 2005, the Dowry Prohibition Act 1961, the Indecent Representation of Women Prohibition Act 1986, the Sexual Harassment of Women at Workplace, that is a Prevention, Prohibition and Redressal Act 2013, the Prohibition of Child Marriage Act 2006, the Equal Remuneration Act 1976, the Maternity Benefit Act 2017, and the 73rd and 74th Amendment of the Constitution mandating 33% of the reservation for women in local governance. The Criminal Law Act 2013 has been actually enacted, making the punishment more stringent for offenses like rape, sexual assault, and etc. So these are the legislations are there to understand the gender justice. You have to give some awareness programs to these. You have to sensitize them. That's very, very important. You have to have some seminars, conferences, symposiums, and workshops through which you can disseminate the knowledge. That's very, very important. You have to give a training to these people who are actually responsible for effective implementation of these specific legislations are concerned. So apart from these specific legislations, the government of India is actually implementing the various schemes and programs to overcome gender disparity and provide equal status to women in the country. The schemes being implemented by the Ministry of Women and Child Development for welfare of women. Take for an example, you have a Beti Bachao, Beti Padhao, you have a Swadhar Grey scheme, you have then Ujjwala scheme, you have Rashtriya Mahila Kosh, you have working women hostels, which is actually ensuring safe accommodation for women working away from their places of the residence are concerned. So in this context, I appreciate the efforts made by the central government with you to understand gender justice as such. In this context, much has been discussed. No matter, I think nothing is left out to me to share. However, it stimulates me to share a few thoughts on the basis of these challenging issues are concerned. However, there is a lack of awareness, understanding by authorities are concerned. You have to give some trainings to these people, without which it would be virtually impossible. And you have had different kinds of legal systems, constitutional arrangements in regions, lack of resources we have, lack of commitment like manuals, instructions and training, and lack of the international enforcement mechanisms. So that's why I must share with you. However, you might have got some criticisms leveled against to the law. There is a lot of scope to understand it, and there is a room for discussing all these issues. Have a look on, because you are a better judge what is right and what is wrong. There is a lot of scope for improvement in the given society as such. This society is actually mixed with many colors. I must share with you, based on triple justice. It could be economic justice, social justice, and political justice. The justice should be shared to the people who are left out in the society as a whole. I mean to say, in nutshell, the fruits of justice should be shared to the people who are left out in the society as a whole. That's one of the major obligations are actually shouldered on the state-centric approaches. I mean to say, in nutshell, state shall not be a violator of human rights. State should be a protector of human rights. So in this context, state has got its own obligations towards the people, how they are living. They have to understand. All states, irrespective of the fact that they could be developing, least developed, non-self-governing, or trust territory, whatever the status they might be having, they are actually shouldered some responsibilities to understand the problems of a human being all along. In nutshell, I can say, you have to give voice to the voiceless. This is very, very important. Eye to the eyeless, isn't it? If someone is actually crying, you should understand why he's actually crying. Literally, you have to go and ask him. And it's your duty towards others. Lots of responsibilities are shouldered on the civil society as such. Civil society is responsible to pay for it. Hence, there is a lot of scope for improvement in the given society based on these observations are concerned. In otherwise manner, I can say the triple justice should be shared. I mean to say that the fruits of justice should be shared to the people who are left out in the society as a whole. In these parameters, when United Nations organization was established, the political rights of women were an exception rather than a rule. When UDHR, I mean to say Universal Declaration of Human Rights 1948 was actually being drafted, it was proposed that its first article should read all men are brothers. All men are brothers. I repeat once again, all men are brothers. And the protection of maternity in international labor law implicitly discriminated against women, their childbearing role at the expense of their equal right to work and equal rights in a work capacity. This has happened when we were actually drafting UDHR, Universal Declaration of Human Rights, 1948 as such. Look at United Nations Organization, how in what manner United Nations Organization and its half-century enactments have given you some inputs to understand the problems of human being all over the world. Have a look on Article 55 and 56 of UN Charter 1945. They have given you some powers to Economic and Social Council to understand well-being of people all over the world, irrespective of the fact that this has to be looked upon. And moreover, if rather I would say, gender has today become an integral part of the global policies, not only in human rights, but also in development, environment, and housing, or with regard to combating violence or refugee protection as such. This is really alarming when it comes to the knowledge of a few people. They could be internally displaced persons, refugees, orphans, elderly. Many people have been actually retracted. It is because of a few reasons are concerned. Of course, they are not supposed to be left out from the society as a whole. So that's why we need to have some action plans to understand these aspects are concerned. While you're actually dealing with this, you have to understand evolving prohibition of discrimination. Evolving prohibition of discrimination is one of the steps emphasized at the international level. Look at your UN Charter 1945, wherein it has outspoken on equal rights of men and women. On the other hand, UDHR reaffirms equal rights of women. On the other hand, have a look on 6 different grounds of discrimination from the point of view of understanding gender sensitization as such. Sex is one. Second, pregnancy and childbearing, maternity, marital status, family, and household duties and responsibilities. These are the 6 different forms of discriminations you have all over the world, not only in India, cutting across the world. You can go to any country. It could be Eurocentric, Asia-Afrocentric approach, or US-centric approaches are concerned. You are witnessing all these. I must share with you, being a student of public international law, there are 3 main conflicts are there in our society. There is a conflict between man and nature. Of course, solution can be found through science. Second, man with other men. How would you resolve a conflict between man with other men? Obviously, politics will come and help you. Last but not the least, you have got your own problem. I have got my own problem. How can I resolve my own problem? How can you resolve your own problem? There is a lot of scope to overcome all these based on yoga, based on spiritual attitudes, based on religious fundamentalistic factors. You can overcome your own problems are concerned. These are the 3 common problems are there everywhere on this earth planet, but we have to work on. There is a lot of scope to overcome all these issues and challenges are concerned. So that's why you have to understand certain developments that are taken place on the basis of global standards. That's why I must share with you. However, you might have got some criticisms leveled against to United Nations organization. The way in which UNO has been working for humanity, or rules of humanity, or dictate of public consciousness, or rules of proportionality shall be looked upon, and there is a way out to overcome some issues and challenges. I agree with you. So that's why there are so many international instruments have outspoken to understand these people are concerned. You have UDSR and other international instruments in which they have outspoken on the problems of women all over the world as such. That's why as and when you deal with these specific international conventions or agreements between states, we have had some perverted answers because of a US-centric approach, Euro-centric approach, Asia-Afro-centric approaches are concerned. Especially in Asia-Afro-centric approach, you may find a lot of issues and challenges because they are closer to high temperature, as I said, on the basis of my own hypothesis. Well, yeah, this is one of my hypotheses. I don't know how, in what manner this hypothesis will be successful in future in order to understand the problems of these people who are actually living in the area where they are actually closer to high temperature. If you are closer to high temperature, high fertility will come. When you have got high fertility, population will be increased. When you got more population, problems are quite common all over the world as such. So that's why you have to understand all these aspects on the basis of certain observations in which they have outspoken at the national and international level as such. In this session, I wanted to share a few thoughts how, in what manner, women are actually highly vulnerable, how, in what manner they can overcome their own issues and challenges according to the state-centric approaches. I mean to say, it is one of the responsibilities on the part of a state to render justice to a common man, none other than women are concerned. This is one of the observations we have. On the other hand, in 2001, International Law Commission framed draft articles on state responsibilities for wrongful acts. These articles were actually drafted by 5 special rapporteurs of International Law Commission. What does it mean, a state responsibility? They say that if a state violates international obligations, then the state responsibility would come into picture. How a state is responsible to pay for it. This is what the draft articles on state responsibilities have outspoken on the obligations of states. Obligations of the states are many. Of course, no doubt, this is one of the responsibilities on the part of a state to render justice to these people who are highly vulnerable, retracted, and marginalized in the society as a whole. So in this context, of course, we are reaching our limitation. We'll have a tea break. Then soon after that, we can share a few thoughts on the basis of rest of them. So before I'm going to deal with this, no matter however it could be, there are so many challenging issues are there when you are actually running with gender sensitization. No matter when you are actually understanding the problems of women, it's really highly sensitive. It requires a lot of efforts to understand her inner feelings. This is very, very important. Sometimes they don't reveal. However, there's a lot of scope to understand her feelings. in the given situation as such. So that's why at the end of this session, I can say that they should go hand in hand. Nobody is stronger. You cannot be stronger by exploiting others. Nobody is actually superior or inferior. All are equally footing. We have to uphold the constitutional values in which you have been actually running here in India as such. Thank you very much. I'll get back to you at 3:45 after having a cup of tea. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
We have tea break. Daniel, how are you?
ಇದು ಒಂಥರ ಇರ್ಬೇಕು ಸರ್ ಡೈಲಿ ಇಟ್ಬಿಟ್ರೆ ನಮ್ಗೆ ಸಮಾನ ಅದರಲ್ಲಿ ಗಾಂಧೀಜಿ ಅವತ್ತು ಏನ್ ಬಿಡೋ ಇದು ಟೀಚರ್ಸ್ ಟ್ರೈನಿಂಗ್ ನಮ್ಗೆ ಯಾಕೆ ನಮ್ಗೆ ಏನಾಗ್ತಿದ್ರಿಂದ ಏನೋ ಒಂಥರ ಅದು ಇನ್ನೊಂದು ರಿಸಲ್ಟ್ ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಅದನ್ನ ಫಸ್ಟ್ ಇಲ್ವಾ ಅದು ಕ್ಲೋಸ್ ಮಾಡೋದು ಏನು ಮಾಡಿ ಮತ್ತೆ ವಾಪಸ್ 300 ಮಾಡಿ ಇಲ್ಲ ಇದು ಮಾಡ್ಬಿಡಿ ಅಲ್ಲ ನಾವು